morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. Thanks so much for clicking on my video. I love you all. My name is miahtheking, and I am reading a horror story in Braille. Something bad is going to happen. I could just feel it. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called Neva, a side-scrolling adventure game built with ambiance as its focus. Now, I know, everyone who decided to click on my video are blessing me with your presence simply because you want to know if you should buy it or not. Well, I guarantee you'll know in 10 minutes or less, which is far shorter than a lot of other reviewers out there, so stick around and find out the answer to that question. So, this game was developed by Neva Studio and published by Devolver Digital. It was released not in early access and is currently selling for $20. So, let's just dive right into this sucker, and we're going to start off with the positive points I found in the game before you get bored, alright? So, up first was the art style. Now, at first, I wasn't actually a big fan of this kind of art style. I've seen it used wrongly way too many times. However, here, with great color choices, contrasting styles, and animations, plus details in places you wouldn't expect, I found the graphical quality and the art style to be very pleasing to the eye. And that feeling sticks around for a while. The imagery in the game as well as is something quite astounding. I found myself mouth agape and eyes glued to the screen as the game progressed from scene to scene, moment to moment. Every frame was filled with tons of powerful imagery, which continued to draw my attention. As you progress through the game, you'll be granted tons of beautiful sights to really just make you smile and wonder at what you're looking at. Great job here, game devs. The next thing positively that I'd like to talk about is the sound design and sound quality. These are always the first two things that I check along with graphics because I feel it's normally the first things that hit you when you first log into a game. So the musical design here is simply wonderful. And this level of intense mood-rearing music continues throughout your gameplay, always fitting, always sounding exactly the way you'd expect it to without it ever disappearing on you or becoming obnoxious. Then you've got the partial voice acting. Now, while the voice actress doesn't do a whole lot of talking, what she does actually say, along with sound effects such as grunting, sighing, or calling out to her dog, all sound surprisingly perfect when she says so little. And then you've got the sound effects themselves, each one sounding cool and realistic with a nice kick to it to really make you sure that you heard that correctly. Again, great job here, game devs. Next up for the positives I'd like to talk about is the gameplay. Now, typically, I'm not a huge fan of side-scrolling beat-em-up games, or any side-scrolling games to be honest. It was just never really my forte, my thing. But despite that, I've seen some good ones and some bad ones, and for this game's gameplay, it was actually pretty simple yet also fulfilling. This game isn't going to be very fast action-paced like a lot of side-scrollers out there. This one takes its time in all things, and that includes the combat. Simple button commands, no unlockable skills. I mean, not really, but I'll get into that. No leveling system or combo moves or anything like that. You have a jump, a double jump, a dodge, and a strike button, and there is more later, and I thought I was going to talk about it, but I don't want to right now, simply because it does have slight spoilers, so I'm not going to mention any of the actual new moves that you do unlock throughout the gameplay, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But, as I mentioned, there's a bunch of different enemy types that need to be handled appropriately, and even boss battles, which, while not too difficult, were fun and interesting to engage in. But the gist of the gameplay is to follow the linear path of sometimes guided by the game or guided by your pet dog to find your way. You must traverse through this undergrowth towards some unknown objective for that particular level at that particular time, with time puzzles and navigational puzzles, tricky bosses to fight, and a good variety of different enemies to face off against. But the key thing I'd like to make mention of is the smoothness and cohesiveness nature of the gameplay, and it's overall fairly solid. Now, the next thing that I'd like to take mention of is the creativity and the ambiance the game manages to create. As I briefly mentioned earlier, the game has this way of setting a tone for almost every scene or sequence in the game. You're feeling something at all times, whether it be wonderment, fear, anxiety, or even anger. The game is always drawing out some kind of emotion from you, especially if you're a dog lover. As for the creativity, this game is filled with it. The enemy types and what they end up doing to stuff around you, or trying to do to you, or what the big mystery is and what's going on here, just all of it is very creative and different from most things that you see, and it was very engaging. It did a great job of pulling me in and making me want to push further to learn more and to see what's going to happen next. And last but not least, is the control scheme and overall stability of the game. The stability was actually great, which you used to always expect from fully finished games, but you don't really see so much anymore. I apologize if you hear any meowing in the background. My cat decided to come in and say hi, and I know I said I'm a dog person. I've got a cat and a dog. The cat is my wife's. Anyway, the game never froze, crashed, lagged, dropped frames, or anything like that for me. Everything worked well and responded well, so playing it was a lot more fun and engaging. And as for the control scheme, let me go ahead and just say this real quick. The game highly recommends you play with a controller. I personally hate games that are designed on PC and sold on PC and then not having PC controls optimized or at least functional, and usually this is a big red flag to me. However, once I got into the game, I found the keyboard controls to be very intuitive and well managed. No mouse usage here, just keyboard, which a lot of these games fail to understand. Long story short, the controls, even for just the PC keyboard, were still very well crafted and easy to use, as well as not being awkward, which I think was the best point. Finally, a development team that realizes just because it's focused towards controllers doesn't mean we need to sacrifice the PC controls. I played totally on keyboard and was very satisfied with the result. I didn't find it awkward or hard to control, fight, or manage the game at all. Alright, so that's all the things I felt strongly enough, positively enough to make mention of, but now we gotta go into the unfortunate negatives that I tend to have a gift for finding when no one else can find them. But before we get into that, if you find yourself still hanging around at this point and found the video either entertaining or at least informative, then consider joining the Royal Court's Royal Army today and hit those important buttons right down there, right below the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell. Hitting that bell lets you know when I'm reviewing a new game, and who knows, it might just be the game you've been missing out on your whole life. Okay, so enough self-promotion. Now on to the negatives, and I know I kind of built that up a lot from my previous statement, but here's the thing. I couldn't really find any negatives to talk about. Not really anything I could say that was worth mentioning. Gameplay, good. Story, good. Sound design, good. Controls, good. Stability, good. Price, good. I mean, literally couldn't find anything negatively to talk about that was big enough or worth mentioning enough to put in my video. So I guess I just won't. Even with nitpicking, I couldn't really figure out what to say, so I just trashed the pathetic negative that I thought I had, especially when I did further research and learned it wasn't a negative at all. So, considering that, I'm not even going to bother trying with any more negatives. So, what are my overall thoughts and recommendation? Well, that should be fairly easy. Whether you are a fan of side-scroller, slower games or not, I'd recommend everybody who watches this video to check out this game. With interesting visuals, sound choices, engaging gameplay, all at an affordable price, I can't find a single reason why anyone even remotely interested in this game wouldn't buy it. So, yes, go check it out. This game is great. It is awesome. You will not regret it. Alright everybody? Alright, so that is all the time I got for this video. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. I told you it'd be under 10 minutes. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.